If you've ever wanted to see someone's overinflated ego collapse in real time, there's no better example than what's happening to Mike Israetel right now. A man once celebrated as one of the smartest and most credible figures in the fitness world has now become the center of one of the most embarrassing controversies in the entire industry. For years, Mike presented himself as a genius, a fitness professor with an IQ off the charts.
In my entire life in the context of sport and exercise science. Folks like Gary Braca say some good shit, but then other shit they do needlessly complicates your life. The majority of us are absolutely not amino acid deficient. You guys ever see pictures, Google it, of starving children in Africa that have these crazy swollen bellies? That's what happens to you when you don't get enough protein. You are starving. There are almost no starving people in the United States short of people addicted to methamphetamine who just forgot to eat for 2 weeks straight.
A self-proclaimed intellectual who claimed to be smarter than almost every other coach alive. He often said things like, "I pegged my IQ above 160. They literally couldn't measure it. It was the kind of statement that made his fans laugh in admiration, and his critics roll their eyes in disbelief. But lately, that same Dr. Mike image he built his empire on is starting to crumble, because the very document that defined his career, his PhD dissertation, was recently exposed as one of the biggest academic disasters the fitness community has ever seen. A paper so riddled with errors, plagiarism, and contradictions that it might not just ruin his credibility, it might redefine what it means to be a fake expert in the age of YouTube fitness. This is the story of how one man went from claiming to be the smartest person in the room to being laughed off the internet by the very audience that once worshipped him. This is the downfall of Mike Israetel. But before we get into how everything fell apart, let's rewind to how he rose to the top in the first place. Mike's obsession with fitness started in high school. He was on the wrestling team, and according to him, his coaches used exercise as a punishment. It frustrated him. He couldn't understand why something meant to make athletes better was treated as a bad thing. That moment, that strange teenage realization, became the spark that would define his entire life. By college, Mike was a complete fitness addict. He studied kinesiology at Michigan University, then earned a master's degree in exercise science from Appalachian State University. Those credentials alone could have landed him a stable career, maybe as a professor or researcher. But Mike wanted more. He wanted to be the guy, the one everyone looked up to. So he pushed further, earning a PhD in sport physiology from East Tennessee State University in 2013. That PhD became his golden ticket. It gave him authority, the title Dr. Mike Israetel, and soon he teamed up with his old college friend Nick Shaw to launch Renaissance Periodization, or RP Strength, an online coaching company promising science-based training for everyone. At first, RP was just another small fitness brand, but Mike had an ace up his sleeve: YouTube. He started uploading videos explaining concepts like minimum effective volume or training landmarks, the kind of deep data-driven talk no one else was doing at the time, and people loved it. He didn't just teach fitness, he made it sound like science. To many viewers, Mike wasn't just another coach. He was a professor breaking down the truth. He was confident, assertive, and unapologetically smart. He'd call out legendary bodybuilders like Ronnie Coleman, criticizing their training methods while explaining the scientific way to do it. That level of confidence, or arrogance, depending on how you saw it, helped him build a cult following. His company exploded, his app became one of the most used fitness tools online, and his YouTube channel passed millions of subscribers. For a while, it felt like Mike could do no wrong, but then came Greg Doucette. If you've been around YouTube fitness for a while, you know Greg. Loud, high energy, and brutally honest. Back in 2019, Greg uploaded a video calling out science-based lifters for overcomplicating fitness. His argument was simple. Most people don't train hard enough. You don't need fancy spreadsheets, you just need to push yourself. Mike responded, mocking Greg's go harder attitude and accusing him of ignoring real science. Greg fired back immediately, and what followed was one of the most iconic debates in YouTube fitness history. When the two finally went face to face, everyone expected fireworks, but instead, something strange happened. Greg stayed calm, respectful, and logical, while Mike came off bored, dismissive, even yawning through the conversation. The audience noticed. The top comment summed it up. Greg left his ego at the door. Mike didn't. That moment was a glimpse into the future, a sign that Mike's biggest enemy wasn't Greg Doucette. It was his own ego. Years later, that ego only got bigger. In 2023, Mike announced he was coming back to competitive bodybuilding, hoping to earn his IFBB Pro card. But his return wasn't what fans expected. He started openly talking about his use of performance enhancers, admitting to severe anxiety, rage, and intrusive thoughts while on them. I think about violence all the time. He said in one disturbing clip, I wake up every day afraid of my own thoughts. Greg, concerned for his health, made multiple videos begging Mike to stop, but Mike didn't listen. Instead, he took the criticism personally, calling Greg a two-faced liar in interviews and doubling down on his superiority complex. That's when things got weird. Mike began making bizarre claims, saying he was smarter than almost every coach on earth, tougher than anyone else, and that no one could challenge him because no one knew more about physiology. He even bragged about having an IQ above 160. At that point, it wasn't just confidence, it was delusion. And when his audience started pointing it out, instead of calming down, Mike leaned in even harder. But arrogance like that always invites scrutiny, and eventually, someone decided to dig deeper into his supposed credentials, his PhD. On September 29, 2025, a YouTuber named Solomon Nelson dropped a bombshell video titled, Is Mike Israetel's PhD the biggest academic sham in fitness? What he found was almost too bad to be real. According to Solomon, Mike's dissertation, the paper that earned him the title Doctor, was a complete mess. It was filled with typos, copy-paste errors, misused terminology, and data so mathematically impossible, it looked like it was written by AI on a sugar rush. One table even claimed the average weight of athletes was 73 kilograms with a standard deviation of 71. In simple terms, that means his data suggested some of his subjects weighed 2 kilograms, like newborns, and others 145 kilograms. It made no statistical sense whatsoever. Solomon showed that entire paragraphs were duplicated word for word. Tables were copy-pasted with errors repeated across chapters, and basic words like training, individual, and science were misspelled dozens of times. There were even entire sentences that were grammatically incoherent, like he'd fallen asleep on his keyboard mid-sentence. It wasn't just sloppy, it was embarrassing. And for someone who built his identity on being a perfectionist genius, it was devastating. As Solomon put it, what I got was a document so shallow and confused, it could only pass in a system that had already failed. When the video went viral, Mike's fans were stunned. The man who constantly bragged about being the smartest in the room couldn't even proofread his own dissertation. And for a while, Mike stayed silent. But silence didn't last. A few days later, he restricted access to his thesis in the East Tennessee State University database, essentially hiding it from the public. That was mistake number one. because nothing screams guilt like hiding the evidence. Then came mistake number 2, his excuse. Mike claimed Solomon had reviewed the wrong draft in an earlier version he accidentally uploaded to the university's archive. He even appeared on a friend's YouTube channel, Dr. Milo Wool, to defend himself. In the video, Milo claimed he had the real final draft, one supposedly free of all the errors, and insisted that Mike's name was being dragged unfairly. But there was one big problem. The final version Milo shared was dated before the version Solomon reviewed, meaning Mike's real version was somehow older than the one that was supposedly wrong. Viewers quickly noticed even more red flags. The metadata of the document showed it had been edited in October 2025. The same week Solomon's video came out. Not exactly a good look for someone claiming it was untouched since 2013. To make things worse, the Google Drive file containing this final version wasn't owned by Mike or Milo. It was owned by a digital marketing company, which made people think the document had been fabricated after the fact. By this point, the community wasn't just skeptical, they were furious. One comment summed it up perfectly. No one uploads drafts to official university databases. Stop lying. Mike's response only dug the hole deeper. He later admitted that Solomon did in fact review the correct dissertation, but downplayed the errors as minor clerical mistakes. According to him, it was just a few copy-paste issues and a misplaced negative sign. But for many, it was too little, too late. The damage was done. And now, a quick break, because if you've made it this far, you're clearly someone who loves a good deep dive into internet chaos. So let me introduce myself. Hey, I'm Matic. I make weekly commentary documentaries just like this one, covering the biggest internet scandals, influencer downfalls, and viral moments you probably missed. Every story I cover is based on real research, verified sources, and a touch of sarcasm to keep it entertaining. If you enjoy content like this, make sure to subscribe to the channel. Oh hell no! Alright, back to Mike. After weeks of silence, hiding, and deflection, his reputation was in free fall. Fitness professionals began questioning his credibility, his fans turned on him, and his name became a punchline. What's worse, even his closest friends were now caught in the backlash, especially Milo, the man who tried to defend him. But surprisingly, Mike's YouTube channel didn't collapse. In fact, his numbers actually went up. Why? Because controversy sells, and for every viewer calling him out, there were just as many who didn't care, or even defended him, calling the drama overblown and irrelevant. It's the strange irony of the internet. Sometimes being exposed doesn't destroy you, it just makes you more famous. Still, one thing is clear. Mike Israetel's credibility, the one thing that made him special, will never fully recover. You can rebuild a brand, you can re-upload a video, but you can't rewrite your own history. Once people realize your PhD was a glorified copy-paste job, every claim you make after that becomes just a little harder to believe. All he had to do was tell the truth, admit that his thesis was flawed, that it wasn't perfect, that he made mistakes over a decade ago. But instead, he lied, deflected, and dragged other people down with him. And that might just be the most damaging part of all, because when your entire persona is built on being smarter than everyone else, it only takes one mistake to remind the world that you're human. Whether this controversy will fade or escalate further is still unknown. But one thing's certain, Mike Israetel's downfall will be studied for years as a reminder of how ego, denial, and arrogance can destroy even the smartest man in the room. Thanks for watching. I'm Matic. If you enjoyed this breakdown, make sure to subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments what story you want me to cover next. And remember, no matter how smart you think you are, honesty will always outlast ego.